before I became a Christian, I pretty much grew up in a stable environment. My parents separated when I was young, left my mum looking after 5 kids. I was okay, went to school as usual, but I was easily influenced. So I got involved with guys that were, my friends were sort of came from less privileged backgrounds. And, as I got older into my teens, I was hanging out with guys that were more sort of street minded, grew up on the street. So that mindset, I sort of, I didn't get involved in anything bad on the streets, but I sort of learned the way that these guys kind of thought how to make money and what have you, and ways of surviving. So as I sort of started to get jobs, I took that sort of mindset and being able to handle yourself, being adaptable, and I worked my way up in jobs pretty quickly because I had an ability to adapt, and I had an ability to sort of be able to take on responsibilities. And with that, by the time I was sort of early 20s, I was doing pretty okay for myself. I was able to drive nice cars, buy expensive clothes, and sort of like that just pretty much was as I went through life. It was more just about enjoying life. My career sort of kind of took off. By the time I was in my late 20s, I had a pretty high profile job, and just enjoying life as best I could. I think as my life went on, you sort of obviously gain more experience in certain areas. And I think for me, in 2009, I took on a really high profile job, probably one of my highest jobs to date. And, going into that environment, there was sort of a lot going on. And I just noticed I started to change, I became more self-obsessed. I became more arrogant. I was looking after a facilities department and for an investment firm. And when you're in that environment, you meet a lot of people. You're surrounded by a lot of people with money. So your lifestyle kind of takes on you just start changing because you're around a lot more arrogant people, aggressive people. And I got to that point where I didn't really like myself. I didn't really like who I was becoming, and I felt that I got to a point where I realized I didn't really have control of my personal life, didn't really have control of my way of thinking, and I could feel myself heading to that point of emotional burnout. So, with that, I knew I needed, something had to change in my life. So, at the beginning of 2010, unexpectedly, shortly after Christmas, my mum took ill. Rushed to hospital, and we found out she had suffered heart failure. So that was obviously a big shock to myself and the family. We spent a couple of weeks in hospital while she was recovering, but throughout that couple of weeks, for me, it was time for me to really reflect, and I had time to really reflect on my life and look at the fact, what am I doing? What's really going on here? Life for me was too fast. I was in a situation where I had too much. There was too much abundance. There was too much going on for me, and I realized that I was really going to hit a block if I didn't do something sooner or later. So with that reflection, when Mum came out of hospital, I was literally just, it was a Sunday morning. I was just having a Sunday morning snooze, lying in my bed. My brother, who's been a Christian for many years, he normally texts me scriptures randomly, and I don't normally read them all the time, but this particular morning I just decided I just needed to do something. I just thought I'm going to just read the Bible. And I opened up the Bible. I was lying in my bed, the TV was on, and the scripture that my brother texted me was Acts 2:21, and which says, "Whoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved." And for me, as I read that scripture, I'm a man, I have not, I was in that mindset, hadn't shed tears for as long as I can remember, and just a wave of emotions came over me, and I just had to let it all out. And I kind of knew then that something seriously was happening. And then following that, it was just, following weeks after that, it was just a series of experiences. And people say that, God speaks to you in different ways and what have you, and, you kind of take that, okay, yeah, but, God clearly spoke to me. And it was like, follow me and I'll give you a new heart and I'll put a new spirit in you. And it wasn't a straight away process. I didn't convert straight away, but I knew that God had entered in my life, you know, I knew that, you know, salvation had hit me. So I had to follow it through.